Hello, class. This will be the last of the recorded lectures on solving quadratics. And what I'd like to do is to go over a couple more examples with regards to, for lack of a better word, a little bit more complicated equations where you have to walk through a couple different scenarios. So let's get that started here by pulling up the whiteboard again and giving you a couple examples. Let me clear this off. And let's first take a look at this example. Say like you were given an equation that looks like this. X minus 11 plus 30 equals 0. And you're asked to solve for x. Well, we're in the quadratic section, so you hope this ends up being a quadratic. But the strategy is you always, when you want to solve an equation that's a quadratic, you want to try to get it in that standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And so your strategy is threefold. One, you could try to factor it. Two, you could complete the square, which would be the least thing that I would do personally, unless you had to. And the third solution is using the quadratic formula. So how do we get that equation into that form? Well, what we want to first do is to multiply the x through that parentheses there. And so x times x is x squared. X times minus 11 is minus 11x. And we have plus 30 equals 0. So my recommended strategy is, if you're asked to solve this quadratic and it doesn't say you have to do it in a specific way, what I do is I take maybe about a minute and see if I could factor it. If I can't factor it, I just plug it in a quadratic formula and away I go. It's not giving up if you don't see how to factor it. When the a value is not 1, I almost always use the quadratic formula unless it's obviously I see the factoring with regards to that. So since the a value is 1 again, I'm going to look at the number 30. And are there two factors of 30? And when you multiply them together, you get 30. And when you add them together, you get minus 11. And so that would be minus 5 and minus 6. And so you could see we could take this and go x minus 5, x minus 6 equals 0. And so to make that 0, you'd plug in plus 5. And to make that term 0, you'd plug in plus 6. So that would give you the solution set there. If you don't see it, just plow it through the quadratic formula and you still will get the right answer. It is a little bit more tedious, unless you have a nice calculator that does it for you, but it'll always give you the correct answer. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about is an equation that, say, looks like this: 3x squared plus 2 equals 4x. And again, the strategy is, when you're solving a quadratic, you want to get it in its standard form, because then you'd be able to use one of those techniques that we've been talking about. Strategy here now is we'll take this 4x and move it to the other side. And so we get 3x squared, and then I'll put the minus 4x in the middle there, plus 2 equals 0. And so now we say, well, can you factor that? Maybe. It doesn't jump right out at me right away. With regard to that, 6 and 1, it doesn't look like it's very factorable. So what I would do is use the quadratic formula to solve this. So let's see what we get. And I always like to write these down because it's easy to mix them up. So if if you have them sitting in front of you, you don't get the wrong sign in there, etc. So remember, it's minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2. So what do we want to do? Well, remember, the first thing you want to do is the discriminant, or what's underneath the square root. And so let's take a look at that. And so that would be minus 4 squared minus 4 times 3 times 2. And so when you look at that, you have minus 16, nope, excuse me, plus 16, minus 4 times minus 4 is 16. And then we have 12, 24, minus 24. So it looks like we have minus 8. And remember, we need to take the square root. And so what's the square root of minus 8? It's not real, right? So do we have any real solutions? No. So the answer here would be no real solutions, and you don't even have to keep going with regards to that. So you could see, just want to give you a little bit of benefit about doing that part first, instead of writing it all out, et cetera, et cetera. This saves a little bit of time if you take a look at this one first. And again, if what's under the square root or the discriminant is negative, then you're done because there are no real solutions. So that ends the recorded lectures that I have for you in solving quadratics in section 1.